Hello, welcome. My name is Jerry Wierwille, and I'm the Director of Research at Spirit and Truth.
Hi, and I'm John Schoenheit, and I'm one of the founders of Spirit and Truth Fellowship.
We wanted to share a little bit with you guys about one of the most important projects that Spirit and Truth works on, the Revised English Version Bible. And so we want to give a little bit of background here. And so, John, would you share with us a little bit, how did the REV get started?
The genesis of the REV was actually at a teen Bible study camp. The ministry used to run camps for teenagers and help them learn to study the Bible. And we had them bring research materials and, of course, their Bibles. And then we would study various words, various phrases, various idioms. And people were like, is there a way we can have a translation that reads better for us? That reads more smoothly, and that we can tell what words were in the original text and which words weren't. And so that was the origin of the REV, was, okay, yeah, I guess we could do our own Bible. It would take many years, but we could do it, and it might be very helpful for people.
That's amazing. Now, how did you get going, taking on a project of this scope to translate the Bible? How'd you get off the ground?
Yeah, this scope. And that was back before, a lot of the things that we have now with the internet and all that. So we were operating out of Microsoft Word. The first thing we had to do was we had to find a base text that we could use, because to start with just the Hebrew and just the Greek and try to bring forth every verse from scratch, so to speak, would have taken way too long. So we wanted to have a Bible that we could start with as an underlayment. It took us a number of months, but we finally settled on the American Standard Version of 1901. It wasn't our first choice, but it was our first choice that was out of copyright.
So it was available.
It was available, right, exactly, without paying any kind of fees or whatever. And then it was a matter of getting that into a Word document where we could make changes. So that all took about a year to get us set up where we were ready to go.
And what about the name? You told me that you guys had tried to secure a copyright or trademark for the name, and that took months and months.
It did, because there's the Revised Standard Version, there's the Revised English Version, there's the English Revised Version. There's all these different versions that have the word standard or have the word revised. So because we were taking an English version and revising it, we thought of the Revised English Version. So we submitted that for a trademark, and it got rejected. And they said it's too close to other versions. And so we had to write letters to say, look, here are all the three-letter words for various Bible versions. And, and so ours just fits in that. And then somebody saw that and said, okay. And that's how we got Revised English Version.
So it took about a year for you to get everything together to get this project off the ground. Now, I remember you telling me at one point that you never intended it to be a one-man translation. So you've always worked with people on the REV.
Almost from its inception. The first thing we did after we got it into a Word document and we could manipulate things was there are certain verses and phrases that you really just want to change. Like we wanted to get the Old English. The American Standard Version had ye and thou and wast and lots of shalls and that kind of thing. So it was just kind of a one-man operation to get that stuff taken care of and move that out. But then immediately I rounded up two people that I know read the Greek fluently. And so we started, in the first book we started with was Ephesians. And then from there we went to some other of the smaller books in the New Testament. And then we started to do some work in the Gospels, but by then it had moved on to bigger times and we began to get other more professional people involved. And one of the things we started with right from very early on was that we were going to want to use italics in the text. Because one of the things I learned from the teen camp was in almost all of the Bible versions out there is no way to tell what did the translators add for clarity and what was in the original text. The King James Version had italics, the New American Standard Bible had italics, and that's really helpful because then it's helpful for two reasons. One, when you're reading along as a student of the Bible, you can say, oh, they added this for clarity, but it's not in the original text. But the other thing is that when you can add italics for clarity, there are places where you want to add clarity, but I'd be concerned anyway about messing with the original text by adding things without letting somebody know. So right away from the very beginning, we knew we would use italics like the King James and New American Standard, and they're monstrously helpful. Like here in Ephesians chapter 2:16, if you just looked at the text, it would just say, and he could reconcile both to God in one body. And it's like, both. Both what? And by adding italics, both groups, and you're like, oh, of course, the groups, the Jews and the Gentiles. And then it goes on to say, in one body, through the cross. He's going to reconcile them through the cross. That could mean a whole bunch of different things. What's actually going on in the context? So we added in italics, through his death on the cross. Oh, that's what made everything we had available. So the italics really helps both the student of the Bible and just the plain Bible reader who wants to understand it better.
And then also, you had a lot of study notes that you'd accumulated over the years, and you transitioned those into an associated commentary with the REV.
Yeah, now the commentary, that's such a wonderful addition, especially since the internet and putting things live on the internet to where now you can just click on a verse and the commentary comes up. Because especially in a group like, for example, we're running a teen camp and everybody's bringing their own Bibles, and somebody's bringing a King James, somebody's bringing New American Standard, somebody's bringing an ESV, an NIV, Home and Christian Standard, and they're looking at a verse and the wording is different. And which one is right? And so one of the things that our commentary allowed to do was, okay, here's the Greek text or here's the Hebrew text. Here's what it literally means. Here's what you have to do to make it understandable in English. And then we can explain, and you can bring that out this way or this way. And it just helps people understand so that if they're in a Bible study group, they can understand why there are differences in the English translations and how do you get to the bottom of that and what those verses actually mean.
Wow. The REV has really been an amazing project and an amazing resource for so many people. And this started in the year 2000?
Yeah, it was in 2000 that I searched a whole bunch of different out-of-copyright versions and decided we are going to go with the American Standard Version. It was translated by men from 9 different denominations, if I remember correctly. So it was a very balanced translation. It was a very literal translation. You could follow it in the text. So that was a great way to get it started.
So we're going on the 25th year of this project, and it sure has come a long way, hasn't it?
It's come a long way, and I can remember in those early years, people looked at me like I was crazy and said, this is going to take years. But now we've gone through most of the Bible at least once, and a lot of it 3 or 4 times, and many verses from literally word for word from the original Greek, Hebrew, and Aramaic. And we've also now have commentary entries. There's a shade over 32,000 verses in the Bible. Now, a lot of them need no commentary at all. It'll say something like, the Lord said to Moses, or something like that. But we've now got a commentary entry on over 14,000, closing in on 15,000 verses. So almost half the verses in the Bible have some kind of commentary note that will help people understand the verse.
Well, the REV, since it started in the year 2000, has been a large work of the Spirit and Truth. And in the next episode, we're going to talk about the first edition hard copy and how it came to be.